Have you ever met someone who felt like they were written into the story of your life, only for fate to keep you apart? Maybe the timing was wrong, the circumstances impossible, or the connection too intense to last. It's as if the universe placed them in your path just to awaken something in you, and then let them go. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, believed these encounters aren't accidents. They're hidden assignments for your soul's evolution. These impossible relationships, whether they're fleeting, unrequited, or tragically timed, often leave us asking, why did this happen? Why would life bring someone so deeply meaningful into our lives, only to make being together unattainable? Jung's work reveals that these connections serve a profound purpose. They mirror our unconscious wounds, expose our unmet desires, and push us toward wholeness in ways comfortable love never could. This isn't about destiny in the romantic sense, it's about growth. Today, we'll explore Jung's theories on why the universe sends us people we can't be with, and how these encounters are secretly guiding you home to yourself. Carl Jung's concept of the anima and animus offers a profound lens through which we can understand why we're drawn to certain people, especially those who ignite an inexplicable, almost magnetic pull within us. The anima represents the unconscious feminine energy within a man, while the animus symbolizes the unconscious masculine energy within a woman. These archetypes reside in the depths of our psyche, shaping our attractions, desires, and even the way we relate to others. They are not just abstract ideas but living, dynamic forces that influence our emotional responses and the kinds of relationships we find ourselves in. When we encounter someone who seems to embody the qualities of our anima or animus, the attraction is often immediate and intense, as if we've stumbled upon a missing piece of ourselves. This is because, on an unconscious level, we're recognizing something in them that we haven't yet fully acknowledged or integrated within ourselves. The people who activate our anima or animus often feel like mirrors, reflecting back the parts of us we've neglected, suppressed, or never fully expressed. For a man, a woman who embodies his anima might evoke a sense of mystery, creativity, or emotional depth, qualities he may not have fully embraced in his own life. Similarly, a woman might find herself irresistibly drawn to a man who represents her animus, perhaps through his assertiveness, logic, or strength, traits she may have been discouraged from owning or expressing. These relationships are charged with a sense of destiny because they tug at the invisible threads of our unconscious, pulling us toward wholeness. Yet, this very intensity is also what makes these connections so volatile. The other person isn't just a partner, they're a living symbol of our inner world, and that can create an overwhelming emotional resonance. This is why these relationships often burn brightly but don't always last. The initial spark is fueled by projection. We see in the other person what we haven't yet claimed in ourselves. Over time, as the relationship deepens, the projections begin to fade, and we're forced to confront the reality of the other person as they truly are, separate from our unconscious fantasies. This can lead to disillusionment or conflict, as the idealized image gives way to the complexities of a real human being. But here's the crucial lesson: these relationships aren't meant to be permanent. Their purpose is to wake us up, to show us the parts of ourselves we've been ignoring. The intensity and eventual friction serve as a catalyst for growth, pushing us to integrate these disowned aspects of our psyche. In this way, the person we can't be with becomes a guide, leading us back to ourselves. Jung believed that until we recognize and integrate these unconscious elements, we'll continue to seek them externally, cycling through relationships that feel faded but ultimately unfulfilling. The anima and animus aren't just about romantic partners. They're about the inner marriage of masculine and feminine energies within each of us. When we stop projecting these qualities onto others and start embodying them ourselves, we move closer to psychological wholeness. This is why the universe sometimes sends us people we can't hold on to, because their real purpose isn't to stay, but to reveal what we need to reclaim within ourselves. The heartbreak, the longing, the sense of unfinished business, all of it is part of a larger journey towards self-discovery. And in the end, that may be the greatest gift these impossible loves ever give us. The shadow self is perhaps one of Jung's most compelling and unsettling concepts, the hidden repository of everything we've disowned, suppressed, or refused to acknowledge within ourselves. It's the part of us we keep locked away, not just our darker impulses like anger or selfishness, but also our dormant strengths, creativity, and desires that we've been conditioned to reject. We spend much of our lives crafting a persona, the version of ourselves we present to the world, while the shadow lurks beneath the surface, silently shaping our choices, attractions, and conflicts. It's in our relationships, especially the tumultuous ones, where the shadow makes itself known most vividly. The people who unsettle us, who draw us in with an almost gravitational pull despite our better judgment, often embody the very qualities we've exiled from our conscious identity. They mirror back what we've been too afraid to face, and in doing so, they become unwitting guides to our own depths. This is why we sometimes find ourselves magnetized to individuals who seem to personify what we lack or fear. If we've spent a lifetime being praised for being agreeable, we might be inexplicably drawn to someone who is fiercely independent, even rebellious. If we've prided ourselves on control, we may fall for someone who is spontaneous to the point of chaos. These attractions aren't random, they're the psyche's attempt to restore balance. The shadow doesn't just contain what we dislike about ourselves, it also holds the disowned gold, the parts of us we were taught to abandon in order to fit in or survive. The person who triggers us, who stirs up inexplicable emotions, is often the one carrying the key to a locked door within us. Relationships become the stage where these repressed elements demand to be seen, and the more we resist, the more the universe conspires to bring them to light. These encounters are rarely comfortable. In fact, they're often marked by intensity, conflict, or a sense of doomed inevitability. The shadow operates through projection. We see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. The qualities that irritate us, the traits we judge harshly in a partner or a love interest, are frequently clues to our own hidden aspects. A person who seems reckless might trigger us because we've denied our own desire for freedom. Someone who appears needy might expose our own unacknowledged hunger for connection. Jung's famous words, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," cut to the heart of this dynamic. When we don't confront our shadow, it hijacks our lives, manifesting as repetitive patterns, toxic attractions, or relationships that feel cursed by circumstance. We blame fate, bad luck, or the other person, not realizing that we're caught in a dance with our own unconscious. But therein lies the opportunity. These impossible relationships, the ones that tear us open, are often the ones that force us to grow. They show us where we're fragmented, where we've abandoned ourselves, and where we need to reclaim our wholeness. The pain of these connections isn't meaningless. It's the friction required to polish the rough edges of our psyche. The shadow isn't something to eradicate, it's something to integrate. By facing what we've denied, we reclaim lost power and dissolve the projections that keep us stuck in cycles of longing and frustration. The person we can't be with becomes a mirror, revealing not just our wounds but our potential. And when we stop running from what they reflect, we begin to understand that the universe didn't send them to break us, but to break us open, so we could finally meet ourselves. There exists a particular kind of relationship that defies conventional logic, one that enters your life with undeniable force, shakes you to your core, and then departs just as mysteriously, leaving behind not just heartache but something far more valuable, an unfinished lesson. These connections often feel fated, as though some invisible hand placed this person directly in your path at the exact moment you needed them, yet denied you the satisfaction of keeping them. The pain of their absence can be unbearable, but what if their departure was never a failure of fate, but rather its precise intention? The universe operates in mysterious ways, and sometimes the people we're forced to release are not meant to be permanent fixtures in our lives, but temporary guides, messengers sent to deliver a lesson we weren't yet capable of learning on our own. Consider the toxic relationship that strips you of your dignity before you finally walk away. On the surface, it may seem like a cruel twist of fate, but in truth, it was a masterclass in self-respect. You may not have known how to set boundaries before, or perhaps you didn't even realize how little you valued your own worth until someone came along and reflected that neglect back to you. The pain of that experience wasn't arbitrary. It was the exact pressure required to crack you open and expose the parts of yourself that needed tending. Similarly, unrequited love, that agonizing one-sided ache, often arrives not to punish you, but to reveal the hidden wounds you've carried for years. Why does their indifference devastate you so deeply? Because it mirrors an older abandonment, a childhood neglect, or a buried belief that you must earn love rather than simply receive it. These relationships are mirrors, forcing you to confront what you've avoided, and their impermanence is not an accident, but a necessity. The most painful truth is that some people enter your life not to stay, but to leave, and in their leaving, they create the exact void needed for transformation to take root. Their absence becomes the space where you finally learn to nurture yourself, where you discover the strength that was always there but remained dormant until life demanded it of you. The universe is not wasteful. It does not send you suffering without purpose. Every heartbreak, every missed chance, every almost that slips through your fingers carries within it a lesson that, if embraced, will leave you far richer than the relationship ever could have. The key is to stop asking, "Why couldn't it work?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" The answer is rarely simple, but it is always the beginning of something far greater than what was lost. We've all experienced those strange, almost magical moments when life seems to whisper directly to us, when a chance encounter or unexpected event arrives with such uncanny timing that it feels far more than random. Carl Jung called these occurrences synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that defy logical explanation but carry profound personal significance. They're the universe's way of nudging us onto the right path, often appearing at critical crossroads in our lives. When it comes to relationships, synchronicities frequently mark the arrival of someone who will change everything, not necessarily through longevity, but through the seismic shift they create within us. These are the connections that begin with an eerie sense of recognition, as if you've known this person before, or as though some invisible thread has been pulling you toward each other across time and space. Yet the mystery lies in why these bonds, which feel so divinely orchestrated, so meant to be, are often the very ones that don't last. The answer may be that their purpose was never about building a life together, but about dismantling the life you'd built without yourself at the center. Synchronicity doesn't guarantee permanence. It guarantees transformation. The person who appears at just the right moment to awaken parts of you that had been sleeping isn't necessarily meant to stay. They're meant to stir, to disrupt, to shatter the illusions you've mistaken for truth. Perhaps they arrive when you've become too comfortable in your own stagnation, or when you've been ignoring the quiet call of your soul toward something greater. Their presence acts as a catalyst, forcing you to confront truths you've avoided or potentials you've neglected. And sometimes, the most loving thing the universe can do is remove them once their work is done, because staying would only allow you to cling to the old version of yourself that needed to die. This is where the bittersweet wisdom of divine timing reveals itself. What feels like a cruel separation, a love cut short just as it deepened, a connection severed just as it became real, may actually be an act of grace. Some bonds are meant to be temporary because their highest purpose is to prepare you for what comes next. The heartbreak that follows isn't punishment. It's the necessary fire that burns away what no longer serves you, making space for what will. When Jung spoke of synchronicity, he wasn't just describing pleasant surprises. He was pointing to the hidden intelligence of life itself, the way it conspires to guide us toward wholeness even when we can't see the map. The person you couldn't keep may have been the exact bridge you needed to cross to become someone new. And in the grand design of your becoming, their departure wasn't an interruption of your story, it was the turning of the page. The pain of losing someone who felt fated can leave you stranded in a wilderness of unanswered questions. Yet within this emptiness lies an invitation, not to find another person to fill the void, but to discover the wholeness that was always waiting beneath the surface of your longing. Jungian psychology offers not just explanations for these soul-shaking connections, but a practical path forward, one that transforms heartbreak into initiation. The first step is often the simplest yet most revealing: journaling. When you pour your confusion onto paper without censorship, you begin to trace the invisible patterns that have been operating beneath your conscious choices. That person who awakened such intensity in you, what qualities did they embody that felt so magnetic? The answers often point directly to disowned parts of yourself craving integration. Write about the moments when the relationship triggered your deepest insecurities or your most exalted joys, and you'll start seeing the blueprint of your unconscious at work. Shadow work takes this excavation deeper. Those overwhelming emotions you couldn't control around them, the jealousy, the desperation, the inexplicable rage or bottomless grief, aren't just about the other person. They're flares signaling where your psyche holds unhealed wounds and repressed potentials. Begin by asking yourself, what about this person's behavior triggered me most intensely? Then turn the question inward. Where have I denied this same quality within myself? The charismatic lover who suddenly withdrew may be mirroring your own ambivalence about intimacy. The unavailable partner who kept you hooked might reflect your own resistance to fully showing up for yourself. This isn't about self-blame, but about reclaiming power. Every trait that upset you in another is a fragment of your own psyche waiting to be acknowledged and integrated. At the heart of Jung's teachings lies the concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming the complete, authentic version of yourself. Paradoxically, the relationships that feel most like destiny are often the ones that must end precisely because their purpose was to propel you further along this path. The anguish of separation creates the necessary friction to break open the protective shell of your old identity. What feels like abandonment is actually the universe insisting you stop seeking completion in another and begin the sacred work of befriending yourself. Start small. Sit with your loneliness instead of running from it. Notice when you're tempted to romanticize the past, and gently ask what present emptiness you're trying to avoid facing. Each time you choose self-honesty over fantasy, you're strengthening your capacity to stand alone, not as a lonely figure, but as someone who no longer needs another person to feel whole. These impossible loves are not failures of the universe's design, but its most precise instruments. They arrive to dismantle the illusions you've mistaken for love, that love is possession, that it's salvation, that it's something outside yourself to be earned. Their very impossibility is their gift, forcing you to turn inward and discover that what you've been seeking in another was always yours to claim. The path forward isn't about forgetting or getting over, but about allowing the experience to alchemize within you. Keep journaling when old wounds resurface. Sit with your shadow when it feels uncomfortable. Trust that every step of this difficult work is drawing you closer to the person you're meant to become. Someone who no longer needs a destined partner because you've become the destiny yourself. The love that felt like an ending was actually preparing you for the most important beginning, the reunion with yourself. As we come full circle, It becomes clear that these seemingly star-crossed connections were never cosmic errors or punishments. They were sacred assignments for your soul's evolution. Each encounter, no matter how fleeting or painful, arrived with precision to reveal hidden fragments of yourself, to dismantle outdated versions of love, and to steer you toward your unlived potential. What felt like a tragedy was in fact a carefully orchestrated curriculum in becoming whole. The person you couldn't keep didn't vanish without reason. They completed their work when they ignited the transformation you needed most. Jung's wisdom reminds us that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And so you are forever altered, not by the relationship's duration, but by its depth. Now the invitation turns outward, not toward regret, but toward revelation. Look back at your own impossible connection and ask, what did this soul assignment reveal about my capacity for love, my hidden fears, or the parts of myself I'd abandoned? The lessons live in the details, in the particular ways they challenged you, the specific qualities you admired or resisted, the unique ache their absence left behind. Share your story in the comments below. What did your impossible person teach you? Your insight might be the very mirror someone else needs to recognize their own path to wholeness. Because these encounters were never just about you, they're part of the collective human journey toward love that begins not with finding another, but with finally, unshakably, finding yourself.